Next is from Kid Stacy, subject is working out. Sub
Kid
guys,
Stacy.
It's
Kid
Stacy. Yeah.
Kid Stacy, yeah. Sub guys, quick question for Conan Disco. When you were full time on the road, what did your gym routine look like? Frequency, favorite muscle to work, what type of cardio did you do? Also, do you do anything now? Many thanks. I honestly I change my routine up all the time. I mean, I would do like chest and tries, back and buys, legs, like in that order. Like today, now I'm doing chest and shoulders, back, then arms, then legs. 4 days out of 7. I do cardio. What about you? Do you have a specific routine, Conan?
Yeah, I worked out almost every day. And like you, I would change it up. To so the muscle wouldn't get accustomed to those exercises and you stunt its growth. I did every body part twice a week, and my conditioning. I hated the bike and all that other. That to me was boring. The treadmill. So I'd play basketball, and that was my conditioning right there. Right now, I can't do nothing because I'm hurt. I think I said this before on the podcast. I'm sure I did. I took a power driver from FTR without even knowing what I was doing, and I thought I had a pinched nerve. And I had a broken rib, a torn labrum, and a separated shoulder. And then I fell and my other arm. So for over a year, I couldn't even lift either one of my arms. Now I can lift one. The other one's still like at 50%. Once I get better, I'm going to start training again.
Next is from Jerry's Tadros. Subject is question for the crew. Hey K100 crew, hope you guys are doing well. I listened to Jim Cornette tell a story about how the Macho Man broke Bill Dundee's jaw for wearing trunks that said Macho Man. I went down a weird rabbit hole and found out that Randy Savage beat up a cook in a Waffle House, then took on a police squad that were called in, only to be taken down by the police dogs. Then I heard a story about how Randy and Hawk fought each other at a Kid Rock concert over a past feud. In his promos, he reminded me of a bomb that could go off any second. And was he always wound up so tight in the locker room? Did other wrestlers know not to start something with the Macho Man? Take care. Yeah, he was like, you know what's funny too? It's like when you think of like macho, like the word macho. It's like in the year, like everybody kind of like connotates that like that like Randy Savage. Like that's like a macho guy, That's like because like he was like he like perfected that like he was so popular. Yeah, he was wound up tight, man. No, I don't know who would mess with him. He's a big guy too. He had big arms and
It's
stuff.
kind of
Who would mess
it's
with him?
kind of and it's kind of funny because a lot of those guys they came from the territories and they were wild and there were no rules and you had to fight and bro, there's no guys like Macho Man, not even close in today's wrestling. The characters that we had before and the legit tough guys today, it's like mostly nerds. You know what I'm saying? And but Macho, bro, he was the real deal. He was always very paranoid, and I'm sure you've heard this story, Disco, that when he was dating that girl Stephanie Frankenstein or whatever the her
Gorgeous
name was,
George.
remember? Do you remember
Uh,
Disco?
no, no.
Yeah, Gorgeous George, Di. She
Okay,
was
no,
in
Coach
that.
Jordan.
Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Well, that when he would leave the house, he'd have cameras that she didn't even know about, like spying on her to make sure nobody, went there. And I remember him. I remember that Hall and Nash were telling him one time, him and Hogan should shave their hair, and that look like and just shave it. And because remember he had that freeze dried straw hair,
Mm-hmm.
Macho, really dry.
Yeah.
And I remember Macho telling me when they left the table, he was like, I hope those guys are serious because if I cut my hair and they don't, I'm gonna whoop their. And I told Hall and Nash, I go, just so you know, this guy's. If you guys are playing around, he's gonna come after you. So if he cuts his hair, you better be able to cut your hair.
Right.
And they,
Right.
oh yeah, we'll cut our hair. I could not see Hall or Nash cutting their hair.
No, not at all.
And it would have been on if Macho would have cut his hair and they didn't, because that's how he was. He was always highly wound up, right?
That's an interesting
Bro,
story too.
I remember one time we were in a car, me and DDP, and there was a song on by Madonna. I forget what it was. And in the middle of the song, there was a guy that was rapping that sounded just like Macho. And to trigger him, because he was easy to trigger, we're like, bro, they're copying you. They didn't even get some guy's imitating your voice, and he didn't even get your permission. who is it? What's his name? Does Madonna know? And he would just freak out. He was Macho was one of a kind, bro. I was always a Macho fan, always.
So Luke Smith, our boy from down under, subject is MJF. It's like, hey boys, I sent Disco a pretty big developing story over here on an Australian soldier that won the Victorian Cross Medal for bravery in Afghanistan, who's been found guilty of war crimes. I think all three of you would find it pretty interesting if you have time to have a deeper look into the context of it all. It's a divided opinion over here on whether he's looked at as a hero or a criminal. I'll send you the thing that he sent me so you guys can look at that. Anyway, on to my question to MJF. AEW has allowed MJF to play out the bidding war of 2024 story. And he's taken it even further doing the interviews with Ariel Helwani since he's won the World Heavyweight title and he's the most featured guy on the show every week. My question is, will AEW look extremely foolish if MJF leaves in 6 months and goes to WWE? MJF has been a lifelong WWE fan, and AEW has basically prepared and put the rocket on him for the last 12 to 18 months for WWE to possibly take their most featured guys straight from their main show. Thoughts? And that's from Luke Smith. I would be willing to bet that MJF has already signed an extension with AEW, and he's just doing this as part of his character.
I
would. Well, I wouldn't do 100% because, like, you know, I don't know. They give these guys freedom to say stuff, and I don't know what the angles are and when these guys are shooting in promos. You know, so
I think when that whole MJF left after the pay-per-view on the plane, or he might not show up, or whatever it was, and they talked about his extension, I think that was when it was done. I think he's locked in. I think it's all just fun and games.
Yeah, the obvious answer to the question, if he leaves in 6 months and goes to WWE, yes, they will look foolish. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But what's your take on this, Conan?
Yeah, just like you, I'm going to assume that probably he signed a longer deal with Tony. I can't imagine Tony would let him go out there and saying stuff like that. And if he hasn't, he will never, ever live it down. I just cannot believe in any way, shape, or form, because Tony's not dumb, that he would let him be going out there if there's a chance that he's leaving.
And if they keep the belt on him for that amount of time.
Well, they've given the keys to the car to him. He's got long promo segments, long matches. He says what he wants. He's the man there.
But I'm saying they could do the whole, my contract's running out, I'm going to take this belt with me if I leave down the line, if they have him hold on to it that long, you know.
Next is from Anthony Hunt. The subject is Logan Paul added to Money in the Bank. K100 crew, greetings crew. Bombshell was announced on Raw. Logan Paul has been added to the Money in the Bank ladder match. Didn't we talk about that? That's probably what they were going to do with him?
Mm-hmm.
I think we said that, right?
Yeah.
I was wondering your thoughts. Does this mean LA Knight won't go over? Wow, this changes everything. Sincerely, Anthony Hunt. It does change something in it because we discussed last week. All right, who do you think is going to win this match? And like, there's really no drama. It's just either Priest or LA Knight. Throwing LA a bit. I hope I can find this. So throwing LA Knight adds a lot of drama. Let me tell you how much drama they've added to this match. The betting odds for this, adding Logan. The betting odds are out for this, right? Logan Paul, Priest, and LA Knight are very short odds.
Right.
You're not gonna win a lot if you bet on either guy. You know, they're favorites. You know, again, the other guys are all long shots, but like it is good having three people. Ultimately, you'd want all 6-7 people in the match to have a shot, right? But they just don't have enough stars. But having 3 people as potentially, you know, you don't know which is which. It's a good spot. You know, what do you think, Conan?
100%, same thing, bro. Now it makes it more interesting. Right. Now you're going into the match going, any of these 3 guys can win it instead of 2 guys.
Think about how good Logan Paul is, Conan. That he's had, how many matches has he had? 4 or 5? 4?
Something like that.
4.
Right.
He's going to the Money in the Bank, and he's one of the favorites in the match. Like, that's how highly people in the fans' perception, that's how good this guy is.
Right, because every time they've given him the ball, he's hit a home run.
Home run.
He's been up the bat 4 times and hit 4 home runs.
Yeah.
That's right.
4 matches and 1 Royal Rumble, so.
Yeah.
So would you guys still, if we were talking about this last week and you guys both chose LA Knight, would you still pick Knight or would you give the briefcase to Logan? You still give it to Knight?
No.
Because I don't think Paul necessarily needs it, right?
No.
Although he'd do really good with it.
Paul, you could give it to Paul, but he doesn't have a lot of TV dates. Okay, exactly. You could give it to Paul, and like he could just disappear and show up out of nowhere with that case and cash in, and it would get a monster pop.
Sure.
But that's like that's a big pop, right? But you can do better television with LA Knight with that case. Because he's the guy that you need to elevate and everything. So this spot is better for him. You know, but,
is
but
this
like, go ahead.
Did I read somewhere that this idea was originally Chris Jericho's Money in the Bank?
Yeah.
Or no.
I have no idea.
It was.
That's a very good idea. Yeah.
Next is some long Grande Wang, and the subject is respect. Question for Disco Inferno: the Mark Triggerer. In the lead up to AEW's Collision debut, Tony Khan won the usual shows to promote the show. Busted Open Radio, Barstool Wrestling, and the only way I can describe those experiences is that they were awkward. Tony would make these big boastful comments, nothing but positive spin, and his comments were, most of the time, met with an awkward silence. It seemed like that even Tony's biggest supporters were starting to not believe what he's selling them. Even at the media scrum for the last AEW pay-per-view, it was just a weird move. Long ramble, but basically what I'm asking you, do you think that people who know Tony Khan are starting to lose respect for him? He keeps doing all this talking, but he's not getting the results to match his boasting. What do you think? Well, I'll tell you what. The problem that they have is that this 3 years in, and their numbers are stagnating, and they still have not embraced episodic storytelling. Okay, now they're bringing guys in. They brought in Sanjay. They brought in in Jimmy Jacobs.
Jimmy Jacobs, yeah.
Okay, and let me tell you something. The Jimmy Jacobs is a good get because the guy writes a good episodic television show. Like Impact, if you watch the show, there's good threads throughout with interview promo and stuff like stuff like this. He knows how to write a show. I think it's still out. The jury is still out on Tony because, like I said, he's never been in the business. He's learning it as he goes along. If he can learn to do episodic storytelling better, okay, it might improve. But honestly, bro, every AEW show is the same. There's not a lot of build up to the matches. The matches are way too long, and they're kind of like just the show is determined by the fan base as, okay, how good were the matches? And it's like, people like me, it's like I watch it and I'm just underwhelmed. Like, okay, great. There's a great match. It's like there's 40 matches on TV every week. It's like, I'm not watching all of them. So I don't know. Are people losing respect for him? I mean, bro, he's got I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even know what that means.
This Wang guy, he's got a problem with Tony putting his company over publicly. What's he supposed to do? Of course, Tony's going to.
No, he's an excellent promoter for his company.
Yeah, I mean but that's what Wang's saying. Well, all he does is say all the good. Well, what's he supposed to say? He's going to come on and say Wembley sold these tickets, and we have a new primetime deal with TNT for this show, and Punk's coming. He's going to focus on the positive. Of course, he is. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, it does get a little bit. I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's his job, to put over the product just like it's mine to put over mine. The difference is I have no problem saying when I was wrong. There's no problem saying something was bad. It builds up your credibility with your fan base.
Right.
If my company puts up or a wrestler, I'll say it. And if I'm wrong, there's nothing. Okay, I was wrong. Big deal. I won't do it again. You know what I'm saying? I don't have any problem. Yeah.
You were that clip went on YouTube when we were talking about the clip we're talking about Roosh. Well, what happened with Roosh and all them, right? Bro, that was I don't think you'll find anybody working for a company that would be that honest in like talking about their company. That was an excellent segment. Like you want to if you look, it's like you tell I don't think Tony would do that. You were kind of like, okay, this is what's going on. It's like, I doubt he would. I think his thing was like, I don't want to get, I can't get into that.
Right.
And that's just the way he is. He's a positive spin. I think that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having a positive spin about your company because he's the promoter. And he's actually the guy who runs the company. So there's nothing wrong with that. But you are different because you would like to give more of an honest spin.
Right.
And
the thing is, and here's the only thing that I have on this show and as the the position I'm in AAA is my credibility. That's all I have.
Right.
Obviously, I have people that never believe me and never won't. Big deal. I'm not interested in you. But our fan base knows that I pull no punches and I keep it 100.
Right.
And I don't really know what others think about him, as I don't speak to those people on those shows about him. And I would have to hear the interview. But bro, the reason they keep silent is because they don't. If they fight him, he won't do their show. Very simple.
Right.
And that's the reason why a lot of people won't come on this show, because we're not going to toe any company lines. We're not here to ambush you. We're not here to make you look bad. We're just here to have an honest conversation, and it's okay to get wrong. What's the big deal? You know why it's okay to get wrong, Disco? Because it teaches you what not to do the next time.
Yeah, nobody's
You learn from your You learn from your errors, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I think although Tony does bust it open, I think he won't go on if Bully Ray is on. He'll go on with Dreamer and Dave LaGreca. I'm looking at here, but I seem to recall that. I'd have to look it up. But there was some early on something Bully Ray said about AEW early on that turned Khan off, and he wouldn't go on the show with him. So,
well, that's because Tony will go on these shows. He didn't want he shies away from criticism, but. And it's also it's created this atmosphere.
But just go on there. But just go on there, like Disco said before. Just go on there, confront the guy, and explain your position. And if he's right, he's right. I mean, you might be wrong. What's wrong with being wrong? Right. Nothing.
Yeah. What it was back in 2021, they got into it a little bit on Busted Open about Bully has problems with the way the referees do their job in AEW, and they had a little tip about that. And now Tony won't go on the show with Bully. So.
Good grief.